How are we doing? I can't see a thing. I can see 3 rows, and that's probably a good thing. But thank you all for being here. I'm shaking uncontrollably, but this is going to be awesome, and I'm pumped to be here. Appreciate you, Mum. Thanks so much. You know, I woke up this morning and was like, why me, right? Why am I here? A guy from Wales. How did I end up in this position? And I'm going to tell you how that works out. But have you ever wondered why we say no? Have you ever wondered why, when somebody makes plans, the first thing you can think of is, nah, I don't want to do that. When they cancel, you are thrilled that they canceled because you just didn't want to go, right? We've all kind of done that. And it's kind of one of the first words we learn as a kid, right? Yes, no, mum, dad, why. Why is probably the worst one, I think, if you're a parent. But, all of you here, if you have kids or nieces and nephews, you've always experienced that kid saying no. Do your homework, no. Go to school, no, don't want to do that either. And I think it's progressed through life. We get to now and it's like, your boss says do a little bit extra work, and you say no. Or you do, but you don't really want to. So I think it's progressed so much that it's actually doing us a disservice. It's gone so far. And look, saying no is okay in certain contexts, right? When we're busy, I get it. You need some me time. If you're happy, you're busy. My wife wants to sit at home with the dogs all weekend and drives me nuts. But she works all week, and I get it, right? So saying no in certain contexts is the right thing. But I think it's gone too far. And I'm going to tell you why. So when I was 6 years old, my granddad gave me my first golf club. And it's a wooden shafted 5-iron. I still have it today. It's got dots in the face instead of grooves. I mean, it's that old. So it was no surprise to all of my high school friends 10 years later that, I wanted to be a professional golfer. Golf was my entire life. If you ask anybody I was in high school with, they all know that, Mike just played golf. I didn't go out. I didn't socialize. I just played golf. So at 16, the dream was still to be a professional golfer. And the next step in that dream was to go and play college golf in the States. So I had 2 years to prepare before I graduated. Me and my dad worked out a plan. We saved up some money. And when I graduated at the age of 18, I had committed to a university in Florida, Fort Lauderdale, sunny beaches, much better than Wales. And I was pumped, but I was also super nervous. I'd never been to the States before. A few months go by. I'm prepared. I'm ready to go. My flight's booked. And then the company that my dad works for goes out of business. So my dad and all the other employees lose their jobs. And that money that we'd saved for me to pay for my first semester and my first year in college was now putting food on the table for my family. The dream for me, was now put on hold, right? There's bigger things in life. I kind of had to feed my mom and dad rather than go to school in the States. So I did what most 18-year-old golfers do. You go to work at a golf course. And because I was 18, I went to work behind the bar at the golf course. And I lived the dream, I'm 18 years old. I'm like playing golf every day. I work 6 hours a day. I would play golf in the morning, went to work at 11, work for 5-6 hours, played golf in the afternoon. I did that for 2 years straight. But there comes a point when, you get tired pouring pints of warm beer for crusty old men and watching the women play poker every Tuesday and Sunday. You just think, is this my life? What happened to that childhood dream of me wanting to be a professional golfer? So I reapplied. I reapplied to university in the year that I was about to turn 21. I reapplied in May, which if you're a student athlete or you have kids wanting to be student athletes, May is really not the time to apply to go to university. Most scholarships, most coaches have their roster filled. They're done at that point. But I took a gamble. I took my SAT and somehow got a decent score. And 2 weeks later, I had an email, and then I remember a Skype phone call, because FaceTime wasn't a thing back in 2011. And I had a Skype phone call from a coach at Southern Nazarene University in Bethany, Oklahoma. A little different from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I just thought, this guy's on the phone to me, and I thought the connection was so bad because he was speaking so slowly, until I met him in person and was like, that's actually a thing. Okay, I get it now. But I committed. I was all in. I said, yeah, I'll be there again. I'd never been to the States before. I had no idea what a Nazarene was. I didn't grow up in a Christian family. I Googled where Oklahoma was on the flight over here, right? So it's August 2011. It's the 17th of August. I have a 24-hour travel day. Me and my dad flying over here. We land in Oklahoma City. And, I've just come from 40-degree miserable weather, right? I've been up since 2 a.m. I'm in jeans and a hoodie. And I walk out, and it's 105. And for those of you who've been here long enough, you'll know that that summer was over 100 degrees for a record amount of days, right? So I literally like walked out of the airport, with my golf clubs and a suitcase thinking, do you really want to do this? Is this a good decision? But, we go through the orientation thing, we get checked in, I move into my dorm room, and I say goodbye to my dad, and I'm crying my eyes out. A few days later, my coach comes up to me at practice, and he says to me, I got some bad news. It's like, oh, wow. I mean, is the temperature going up? Like, how, what are we doing here? And he looks at me and he goes, well, the NAIA has said that you're ineligible for your freshman year. It's like, okay, what does that mean exactly? I'd never heard the word ineligible before. And he's like, well, you can't play for the team. But you're here, so I'll honor the scholarship. You're going to be here, but you just can't play. So I've flown halfway around the world to play golf in a place I've never heard of, for a school I've never heard of, for a denomination I didn't know existed, in 105-degree heat, and I can't play golf. So, that kind of college career for the first year gets off to a tough start, and, I go home at Christmas, I come back. I have a decent college career after that once I'm eligible, win a few golf tournaments. But at the end of my senior year, I kind of realized that my dream had changed, right? I'm about to be 25 years old that year, and I'd really fallen in love with the state, its people. It's very similar to the Welsh culture. Everyone's so nice, and the weather's a little bit better. And I kind of got used to the heat at that point. So, I was trying to figure out how do you stay in the country, right? And as an international student, you get a one-year work visa. And the only thing with that one-year work visa is that the job has to be within your degree field. Now, I ended up getting a marketing degree because I could BS my way through, and it was great. So I was pretty confident that, having a marketing degree can relate to any job, and I would, just get some job, not really work that much, and kind of treat it as a gap year, right? So I approach a professor of mine, and he says to me, obviously you don't want to work in an office. That's clearly not you. I think you'd be great at real estate. You should meet this guy. He's a former alumni, former teammate of mine. Great guy, local guy. I think he'd be great for you, and he can tell you all about real estate. He's in the business. Perfect. Off to a great start. So I meet this guy, and for an hour, we just talk about golf, because we're golfers. We just chat about golf and how my career's been and what I want to do. And at the end of the conversation, he says, look, I don't doubt that you're going to get a visa and the real estate company's going to hire you, but what happens after that 1 year, right? What happens when your visa ends? And, I kind of told him three things. My main thing is, look, I'd probably go do a graduate, do my master's degree, become a grad assistant, give me a few more years in the country, and that's best case. Worst case scenario, I get sent home, no more visa, put on a plane, you're done, back to working at the golf course in Wales and pulling pints of warm beer. And then jokingly, in the British way that we do, I sarcastically said, oh, I'll just get married. And he kind of looked at me and said, are you single? It's like, yeah, I am, yeah, I am single. Well, you see, my sister-in-law wants to go on a date and basically said that if you find someone that, that you think would be great for me, you should set us up. It's like, wow, okay. What does she look like, So I eventually got her name and did some internet sleuthing and figured out that she's incredibly good looking, and this would definitely be a good thing for me to go on this date. So we go on this date, 2 weeks later, we go bowling with my new friend Chad and his sister and his sister-in-law, and I'm terrible at bowling, but I somehow get through the date, and I have some, jokes, and it goes well, and we really hit it off, and then we go on a date a couple of days later, just the two of us, and kind of get away and kind of know each other properly without, a weird environment. And, it goes really well, right? And, a couple of weeks later, my graduation party's coming up. My parents are in town. So I kind of told my mom and dad, look, I have a girlfriend. She's kind of coming, to the party and stuff. And I'll never forget the time that she walked into this house party. She's wearing this blue dress. My wife's 5'10". She's in heels. She's a lot taller than most people in the room. And my dad leans over and he says to me, you got to marry that girl. It's like, thanks, Dad. Appreciate that. You haven't met. She hasn't even opened her mouth yet. But she's beautiful, and that was a tick in his box. So this is all going on, and I've got a visa till the end of the year, right? So till the end of May the following year. We date, everything's great, and you fast forward, and I'm doing real estate, I'm doing okay, I'm selling houses to my friends. But in November that year, a friend of mine who was also on OPT said to me, what's the plan? How are you staying? And I just looked at him without even hesitation and said, I'm getting married. He's like, what? It's like, Because the culture in the UK is not to do that, right? You know, culture out here, especially at SNU, is like ring by spring, you're done, you know, you're set. So like, and you all know, you probably have friends that got married at junior year. But, you know, so that's in like November, and then I figure out that like I should probably ask her parents, you know, and January rolls around and my time's running out. And I said to, you know, my in-laws, you know, like I had that meeting, right? That most guys and girls, we've gone through that meeting. It's a horrible experience, asking your future father-in-law his hand, you know, just all of that kind of stuff. But they couldn't have been nicer. They're great. I really hit the jackpot with my in-laws. And they said yes. And a good buddy of mine says, well, you should probably meet an immigration attorney. Like, she kind of knows what she's talking about. And for some weird reason, Taryn was like with me when we went to meet the immigration attorney. And I hadn't like asked her to marry me at this point, right? She's just along for the ride. Like her parents have said yes, but she has no idea. So we go to meet Kelly, and she looks at us, and she's like, are you engaged? No. Were you married yet? No. She's like, could sense that like we just need to be told exactly what needed to happen. And this is the 3rd of February. And she looks at both of us and said, well, it takes 90 days to file all the documents because the government like to do things slow. So that means you have to have everything sent off by March the 1st. Okay, sure. You know, I'm a guy, optimistic, 3 weeks, fine. I could knock everything out in 3 weeks. And she could like sense, like clearly didn't understand what she just said. And was like, you need to get married next week. What? She's right here. Like, she has no idea what's going on. Well, she kind of does, but I haven't asked her yet. You know, and like we go through this whole thing, and then we have to go back to my in-laws and say, look, I know you said yes, but how's next Tuesday? Like, that was a hard conversation to have. But like, and I still hadn't asked my wife to marry me. Like, this was in the car, and like, this was all happening in like 12 hours. So, you know, like, it all happens really fast. They agree to it. We pick a day. I got engaged on the 13th of February, married on the 16th, right? So I can stay in the country. Yes, still got it. She's fantastic. We're married for 6.5 years. But at that point, you know, like that's my ticket, right? I've taken care of that, and I can still maintain a work visa. I can still work. So I'm working in real estate. It's going okay, but at that point, I'd kind of gone through all of my friends, right? I've convinced them all to buy houses and not to, you know, to rent to their friends and not to rent and all this stuff, right? So I quickly ran out of like friends to sell to because people don't buy houses every year. And I'd never learned how to sell. I'd never learned how to build a pipeline. I'd been pretty good at relationship building, but I just run out of business. And like, if you're a real estate agent and you don't sell houses, you don't make any money. Just like, great, super, how's this going? You're recently married, not making any money. So an opportunity comes up towards the end of that year through a friend at golf, and he's like, I think you'd be good at commercial real estate. It's like, we'll give you a small salary. And that was like, light bulb, small salary, perfect. What do I need to do? And I go work in this office, and it's clearly not me, but I go work in this office for like 6 months, and the office is directly above Fuzzy's, and I ate chips and queso like 3 times a week. Like, gained 30 pounds, it was great for my soul, but not great for my body. And I just showed up at work every day, and I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, this is miserable. I wasn't selling anything. I just wasn't engaging in it. I didn't want to be there. And it came to a point where my boss said to me, she came in one day, and HR sat at the table, and I'm like, I can sense where this is going. And she says to me, you know, I don't think you like being here. And with HR in the room, I figured, like, you're about to get fired. So I kind of stopped her. I was like, look, I know this isn't going to go the way you want it to, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'll just leave, right? On the way home, I realized, wow, I just got fired. Like, unofficially, kind of. Like, she didn't say it, but I just got fired. And I had that realization that, like, I was totally disposable. Like, I'm a guy, I'm pretty confident. And the first time, like, I'd been kind of kicked, you know? And I did what most people do when they get let go. They kind of doom scroll YouTube and Netflix for the next few days, trying to figure out what their life is all about and what they're going to do. And I came across this video, and I went back to residential real estate. I still have my license, figured that would be a good thing to do. And I came across this video by Gary Vee, and most people in this room will probably know who Gary Vee is. He's a marketing guru, obnoxious guy who tells you exactly how it is. This video is directly at real estate agents. And he said, you should become the social media mayor of your town. It's like, okay. Kind of struck a chord with me, to be honest. And I'm always on my phone. Build a community. That will be your database. That will be your pipeline. Engage, tell stories, and then collectively you will sell houses to these people. Great idea. In my head, I'm doing the man math. I'm like, if I can get to 10,000 followers, I'm going to sell 100 houses a year. I'm going to be a millionaire, you know, the man math that we all do. And so I started like thumbing away at my phone and building this community on Instagram. I do it for a year, and then I build a following, I get to 10,000 followers, and nothing has happened. I've sold 0 houses from it. I've made no money at all. Like, it's not a good situation. And a friend of mine says, well, how about video? You need to tell a story. You can, come to Honey Bunny next door. You can interview the cook, and how do you get here? Tell me about this biscuit, whatever. Great idea. Put me on camera, and I'm introducing this series. And I was so bad. Like, I have a new appreciation now for newscasters, because people who talk down the camera, that's a serious skill. That was not me. And he laughed, looked at me, and said, how about podcasting? Which is a polite way of saying you're terrible, you have a face for radio, you should be a podcast host. He's like, we have all the equipment, I think it'd be great, go out and record some episodes, what's the worst can happen? And that is how This Is Oklahoma podcast started. I did 5 interviews, released a bunch after that, and to this day, I've done 460 episodes. And met some incredible people, interviewed, I've been in rooms I don't belong in, right? Like, it's been unbelievable. And the one common thing I have through my entire story and all of my guests is that during times of uncertainty, during times of just, scaredom, whatever it is, we all said yes. We all said yes to a new opportunity. We all said yes to maybe a growth opportunity. We said yes to taking our friend to the airport. We said yes to coffee. All of these yeses just unfolded and became, just a greater opportunity. And I look back, I said yes to coming to the States twice. I said yes to staying in the States after realizing I was ineligible. I said yes to real estate. My wife said yes to me, thankfully. And I said yes to getting into commercial real estate. Terrible decision. I definitely didn't want to do that, but I said yes to it, and now I know that I never want to do commercial real estate or work in an office. And I said yes to starting a podcast. And all of these things have kind of accumulated to where I am today. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't say yes. If I just said no, I'd probably be back in Wales, or I'd be pushing paper somewhere, and I'd be miserable. So the one thing I want to leave you guys with is my new normal is saying yes. And I want you to think about where you'd be if the last time somebody asked you to do something, you said no. Where would you be if you said yes? It's pretty impactful, right? It's pretty empowering. So I'll leave you with that. Make your new normal the simplest word in the world. Make it yes. Thank you.